Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving along on some petitions to talk about, Tom, so bring us up to speed.
Yes, the first item on the agenda, the Albert Heisel number 618 petition for variance from Noah Moore Binge. You'll remember in May, he submitted a petition to install a private crossing inside the regulated open ditch so that he could access both sides of his property. Since May, we've been working on trying to get a policy in place for petitions and requests like this, still working on that. But I did happen to notice that this area where Mr. Moore Binge would like to install the crossing is actually in a floodplain, which means that he actually is required to submit that to DNR and FEMA to get approval for that. And in a case like this, I think it's the board would be better served waiting until after that approval is whether that's approved by DNR and IDEM or FEMA. They will actually require him to have the engineering study done to design it, make sure it's up to size. Most likely they're going to make him design it to the 100-year storm. But because that regulatory body is in place for that, that really needs to happen before that request is brought to the Drainage Board. He needs to have approval to put it in before asking the board to put it in. So on this issue today, my recommendation is that we deny the original petition request from Mr. Noah Moore Binge until he is able to contact DNR and they work out whatever size the pipe needs to be, and then the board can approve the actual installation of the structure based on the size that was required by DNR and FEMA.
I was out past there the other day, and that is wooded. I mean,
it's woods.
Woods on both sides, and the open ditch is one that just near nothing.
That's why I tried to contact the petitioner to find out, is it just you want to be able to take a four-wheeler across it? If so, maybe a bridge, like we talked a little bit before about maybe just a bridge over the top of it rather than trying to enclose a pipe within that ditch. If you're not talking about real big heavy machinery, a bridge is always going to be better than a pipe because it's cost-wise, installation-wise, and maintenance-wise. I haven't been able to make contact with him. I did send him an email yesterday to let him know this was the direction that I was heading in, to have the board go ahead and deny that original petition because, again, the size, it's undersized in my opinion based on the petition request. And again, because this is, normally I tell people you're supposed to get DNR and IDEM approval when you're working within an open ditch. That generally doesn't necessarily always happen, but when there is a floodplain involved, it's actually required. So that action needs to happen before the board even considers it, in my opinion. So again, open it up for discussion, any questions you might have, but that's my recommendation, is that we go ahead and deny the original petition request from Mr. Moore Binge.
Do we need to put that in form of motion?
You would, yes.
Is his whole property along the ditch?
Yes.
In a floodplain?
I'll show you what the floodplain looks like and where his parcel lines are.
See, at one time, that was all pretty well cleared out on both sides.
Right.
And I think if he's wanting to go on the other side of the ditch, just go around the corner of the road and go in there.
So the first thing I'm going to show you, so the red outline, this is based on, in 2012, DNR put out new flood maps. We had all the hearings and everything to establish the new flood maps in 2012. Based on the 2012 maps, this is everything within red is what's considered floodplain. Now, there's been some rule changes. DNR is now requiring that we use what they call best available data. This is more engineering type data that's been accumulated in areas. And if we turn off the 2012 maps and turn on what we call the best available that was submitted to us in 2023, you can see it's pretty close. So the dark blue is what is floodplain. There is portions right here that is not considered, but that's actually offset from where the actual crossing is proposed to be. So my guess is that DNR is absolutely going to want permitting for any work done in that stretch of open ditch on that property. But yes, you can see it's completely wooded on the east side and on the west side of that actual open ditch. So because it's wooded, obviously, you can assume that we're not talking about big farm machinery that's going to be going across it. So he may have better options rather than putting something in the ditch, maybe putting something over the ditch.
Okay.
And I will contact Mr. Moorbinge and explain all this to him. Any other questions?
I'll make the motion that we deny the petition on the Albert High Song 618 by Mr. Moorbin, that we deny it until info from the state.
Second.
Been moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say yea.
Aye.
Aye.
And I have an order here for the board to sign denying the petition.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving along, Tom.
Yes, on the next 4 items on the agenda under petitions, you'll see we have 4 different petitions from TDS Telecom. They have proposed a project to install a new fiber optic line, essentially starting on the east side of County Road 100 West, on the north side of County Road 1000 North. The red line that you see is the proposed fiber optic cable. You can see that it crosses the Sarah Kincaid drain, or I'm sorry, the Thomas Wilkins drain, then the Sarah Kincaid drain, then the Henry Lee 1 drain, and then it continues down 1000 North to New Richmond Road, up into New Richmond, and crosses the Philip Dewey in 2 different locations. So you can see it crosses the Philip Dewey tributary here, as well as the tributary to the northwest here. So we've got a separate petition for each of the drains, but they are all part of the same proposed line that TDS Telecom is looking to install. They've submitted their site plans for each, showing the necessary separation between their new fiber optic line and our county tiles and open ditches, and that meets what our policy has been as far as separation goes. So the recommendation would be to approve these 4 petitions as submitted, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
What's your time frame, you know?
On the fiber optic line?
Yes.
Oh, I do not know.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
We should see if anyone wants to speak to it. Probably not.
Any comments? Move it along.
I move that we approve the petition for variance from TDS Telecom on Sarah Kincaid, Philip Dewey, Thomas Wilkins, and Henry Lee.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And I do have orders for all 4 of those real quick for the board to sign. I apologize, but there's a separate one for each drain.
Well, we just need to sign our name more times anyway.
I don't want you to forget how to spell it.
We should need to Okay, now moving down to old business. Reconstruction of Roy Harper Ditch, 596.
Yes, so I've given each of you a copy of the Roy Harper reconstruction change order. You can see that the change order is for a total of $6,562 even. The change order is for an additional 40 feet of 15-inch pipe, an additional 10 feet of 12-inch pipe, additional 44 feet of 10-inch pipe. We actually removed one of the engineered proposed breathers, so that saved us $500. And then we had 8 4- and 6-inch laterals, 1 8-inch lateral, and extending the 18-inch existing tile from the road and utilities for a cost of $1,000. So that total change order, again, $6,562. You'll remember the Roy Harper reconstruction was approved at an estimate of $73,490.23. And then the final schedule of reconstruction and maintenance assessments that I've given you shows you that we were able to complete that project for a total of $70,598.67. So we actually came in under estimate on this project, so very happy about that. So I would ask that the board approve the change order for the Roy Harper 592 reconstruction, as well as the final payment to the contractor and this final schedule of maintenance and reconstruction assessments. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Move to approve the change order.
Then moved in second. Any discussion? Any questions? Anybody? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
You'll also need an order for, or a motion for approving final payment to the contractor, and then another motion for approving the final schedule of maintenance and reconstruction assessments.
And you can make them in the same.
That's what it's gonna be my next, can we do all at once, one motion?
You may.
It's been moved.
Second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
I was reading here just a minute, I was just checking.
That's okay. I'm your executive officer. I'll take care of it.
I was just going there.
Somebody's got to right this ship.
Okay. That's so many motions I forgot what I was supposed to do. Did we have anything signed on that one?
No, sir.
All right,
Just your
okay.
word.
All right.
So moving on, the next
Moving
item
along then.
under old business, you see the Edward Berry number 593 reconstruction. Same thing here. We are approving the change order and the payment to the contractor, as well as the final schedule of reconstruction assessments. So just going through this real quick, the Edward Berry reconstruction change order in the amount of $20,571 even, and that is for an additional 171 feet of 12-inch pipe, 109 feet of 10-inch pipe, 30 feet of 8-inch, and 150 feet of 6-inch, as well as 4,350 feet of destruction of the existing tile. We actually removed 2 of the breathers on this one, which saved $1,000. Fence repair and tree removal for that project, for that total change order of $20,571 even. And then again, moving on to the final schedule of maintenance and reconstruction assessments, you will see that the Edward Berry was approved at an estimate of $151,827.96. Again, that's $151,827.96. And you can see the final cost to the landowners is actually $166,426.33. So this one we went over budget. The main reason being is we actually had a total of 47 laterals on this drain, which is out of the ordinary. It appears that in at least one of the fields, there had been pattern tiling done, and rather than doing a sub-main, they just tied in every lateral to the old main. So this kind of situation comes up on occasion. It's hard to plan for this. This is why The number of laterals is unknown on the bid sheet because we have no way of knowing. Until we dig the new tile in, there is absolutely no way of knowing how many laterals there are going to be or what that cost is going to be. This is still within, you'll see that when we've come to the final numbers, once all of the invoices, the engineering, and the notices are paid, again, that total, $166,426.33, is actually $14,598.37 more than what was actually estimated. And that is almost a 10% overage, which is within the board's purview to allow for that additional cost based on the project.
Excuse me, you said they just, instead of hooking up all those laterals to the main, they just installed a sub-main with one connection to the main? Is that what you said?
No, what I was saying was the reason there are that many laterals is when they did their pattern tiling, they did not do a sub-main. They tied every lateral into the county
into the
main.
main.
Yeah,
So they hooked each one up to the main?
correct.
Technically, it'd been better to run them.
Yeah, we generally, when these requests are brought to us beforehand, when a farmer wants to pattern tile their field, we strongly recommend that they put in a sub-main and just make one or two connections. Sometimes with contours, sometimes you have to make more than two. If it's a matter of sub-watershed, sometimes you can't get that water to go into the next watershed. So having 2 or 3 sub-mains hooked up to the mains is really ideal rather than 44 in one field, especially 4 or 6 inch tiles. But again, once it's there, it was cheaper to tie them all in this way than it would have been to run a whole separate sub-main to tie them into and then tie that sub-main in. And also, we can't do that because then that sub-main would become part of the regulated drain, which we do not want. So this is one of those lesser of two evils decisions that had to be made. And unfortunately, it did drive up the cost of that project to almost 10% above what was estimated. This one, we kind of figured there would be some overages. A lot was unknown on this drain. You can see on the change order, I've got the destruction of existing tile. Normally that, you won't find that on a change order. Normally that is delineated in the actual bid process, but because we had no idea of knowing where some of these tiles, whether they even existed or not, we left that as an unknown, just like we do the lateral connections on the bid sheet. So that's why that's figured in on the change order rather than on the bid, the way it normally is. So,
Be interested to see when that field was pattern tiled and who did the job.
yes.
Did you do that?
I don't think so. He's looking at me like maybe I did it.
No.
Well, because, I think probably in the earlier days, when pattern tiling came out, that's what they did. They all went down to the main ditch, the main. But since that time, all of them now have went back to what you just said. They put in a sub-main.
Yeah, and we've also seen, and it's kind of weird that some of these older tiles, because they were in such disrepair, that you would actually have a situation where portions of the watershed, the tiles seem to work better than others. So sometimes it made more sense to tie those laterals in where they were coming to the main because they actually had better flow there than they did downstream. So they would basically tie it all in there. And then if there was a sub-watershed farther, closer to the outlet, then they would do a sub-main and just make one connection there. But again, there's a lot of different things that go into that dynamic. And that's why, like I say, generally this should have been brought to the board beforehand. And we could have said, we don't want 40 connections to the regulated drain in that field. You have to put in a sub-main and just make 1 or 2 connections. And like I said, we are conscientious about doing that now with projects that are planned. But I don't have any record of this tiling ever being brought to the county drainage board. So that's where you run into this issue is, if nobody was there to tell them, they're going to do whatever's cheapest for them, obviously.
The only thing, the difference in the snap couplers and those type of things makes it easier to do versus putting 47 connections into an old concrete or clay tile.
Yes, and every time you dig up that old clay or concrete and you, even digging it up, destabilizes it. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of this tile, because it's so old and decrepit, that ground around it is basically the only structure that holds that tile in place, and just digging the dirt out from around it will cause that tile to just collapse. So it certainly is better if you're dealing with an old clay or concrete tile to run a sub-main to tie all your new plastic tile into rather than making every connection the way that it does. But like I said, this isn't the first time we've come across this, and it won't be the last. Like I said, all we can do is make sure that projects that are proposed in the future are designed in a way that minimizes the risk to the regulated drain.
Okay, entertain a motion to accept the change orders and go ahead and pay the contractor.
And approve the final schedule of maintenance and reconstruction assessments.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Okay, Otis Thompson.
Yes, so under old business, we have the Otis Thompson number 708 Tributary 3 reconstruction report. Some of you will remember, some of you will not. In 2023, we began the design phase for the Tributary 3 of the Otis Thompson reconstruction. I'll put it up on the map here. So the report that I've given you, you'll see the first page is the facts about the drain. We're not going to go through that today because this is just a report for the board. So the second page is a map of the watershed. So you can see the red outline represents the watershed for the Otis Thompson number 708. So all of the acreage within that red boundary is what is assessed for the maintenance and reconstruction of the Otis Thompson drain. So to this point, we have reconstructed all of the tile on the main, as well as this tributary 1-1. And the only thing left to do now is the tributary 3 to the south. You can see it's this very small run of tile, approximately 1,000 feet of 8-inch tile is what's proposed. But that does require boring under the CSX Railroad and the highway. That's why we started this in 2023 and we are addressing it now in 2025. We finally have got everything, I think, worked out in agreement with CSX and NDOT. As far as being able to get the permits in place. We are still hoping to do this project this year. So this report today is just to show you that the estimated costs to the landowners for this next phase of reconstruction for the Otis Thompson number 708 tributary number 3 is estimated at $104,183.62. There are 846.57 acres in that watershed area, which comes to an estimated cost of reconstruction per acre of $123.07. Now you can see this estimate that I've provided for you is a little bit more elaborate than normal, and that is only because of the inclusion of CSX and NDOT. So the code requires that NDOT reimburse the county for 100% of the work that is done in their right-of-way. CSX is required to reimburse 50% of the work done in their right-of-way. So essentially, the bore under the railroad and the highway, the landowner is only going to be responsible for 25% of that cost because the other 75% between 50 and 100 is paid by NDOT or CSX. So the estimated cost of the landowners, again, is $104,183.62. It includes installation of 907 feet of 8-inch smooth core pipe, one 8-inch outlet with an animal guard into the open ditch, destroying the existing tile of 907 feet, additional excavation or scalping, approximately 650 cubic yards of scalping, the installation of the 8-inch PVC carrier pipe, 65 feet, and the engineering for the project. Now you will notice the carrier pipe is included in the estimate for the landowners. Generally, that has not been the case. CSX now states that they are not responsible for the carrier pipe. They're responsible for the casing pipe, but they are not required to pay for the carrier pipe. Now, what's odd about that is the carrier pipe is literally the smallest portion of that project. It's the cheapest part of the project. It's still expensive to landowners because you can see 8-inch PVC is $75 a foot versus 8-inch HDPE poly that's, $9 or $10 a foot. So it's not that the cost is negligible, it's just weird that now suddenly they decide that the carrier pipe is not their responsibility. They can require it, but it's not their responsibility because we've had this conversation with NDOT and over a couple projects that we've done over the last few years, we got into kind of an argument about casing and carrier, and they allowed us just to install one steel pipe that can serve as casing and carrier pipe. So when CSX started backtracking on paying for the carrier pipe, we asked them, well, can we just put in a steel pipe and use that as casing and carrier? They do not allow that. They do require a carrier pipe. They just don't think that they should have to pay for it. Now, again, because it is, I don't want to say it's a cheap part of the project because I'm not paying for it, so it's not fair for me to say that. But it is the cheapest part of that project. I don't want to hold it up anymore for that. I actually went back, once CSX made that determination with the engineer that they were just not going to pay for it, I got in contact with CSX. I sent them the last 4 agreements for projects where we bored under their railroads, showing that they have always paid for the carrier pipe. And I asked them, has there been a change in some regulation or some interpretation of a regulation that explains why you won't pay for the carrier pipe now? And they literally came back with CSX's position is they are not required to pay for the carrier pipe, and that was it. So I don't see the point in beating that anymore and holding up the project any more than what it's already held up by the permitting process, so.
I can somewhat understand the difference between a railroad bore and a highway bore. You know, if a highway bore fails a little bit, you're gonna have a dip in the road. You have a dip in the rail, that's a whole mess that nobody wants to get into.
Right.
And I'm sure that they're doing everything they can to eliminate that, because if a train goes off the track because of a bore that's under the road, you're talking millions.
Yeah, I can't get past the dilemma of, yes, we require this, but no, it's not our responsibility.
Can they, arrange to have it bored all at the same time?
Yeah, it's gonna be one bore across both. It will just be one bore.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not enough room in between the railroad and the highway to dig a bore pit and try to match up bores, so it's just gonna be one, and it's so 65, so it's a 150-foot bore. And it's gonna be a 16-inch steel pipe that's the casing with the 8-inch PVC in the middle as the carrier.
Then there's new tile going from the east side of the railroad down to the ditch.
Correct. And to the west, you can see that NDOT actually purchased property along there where they did their expansion of the road. So we will bring that new tile once we get outside of the state road right-of-way. We're still in NDOT's property. We'll extend that tile as far upstream as we have to find whatever's coming upstream and get it tied in. But it's not gonna be very far west of the road, so you can see where the red line stops on the west side of the road. The highlighted one is the existing tile. This is what's proposed just to get us outside of NDOT right away. And we assume whatever's coming from upstream we'll be able to find relatively close there and tie it in. But yes, it'll be 8-inch HDPE on the west side of the highway. Once we get into the road and the railroad, it will be 8-inch PVC, converting back to 8-inch poly once we get east of the railroad right of way around to the open ditch.
Okay, I guess I was thinking that went up to the next road. All we're doing is providing the outlet on the west side of 231, and the rest of it is
That's all private from that point upstream.
all private.
Yeah,
because it's
it
all-
always has been, yeah.
And it's one landowner.
Is that Wilson's all in there?
It's Joe Wilson's farm. I think there might be,
Is Bennett got some in there someplace too?
well, you can see, so this is the Joe Wilson farm. This is where the tile comes into it at the upstream end. This watershed, the watershed for tributary 3 is only like 48 acres is all that's actually served by that small tributary. So yeah, it's probably primarily Joe. There may be a little bit on that, I think that's Crum to the west. There might be a small part of that southeast corner that's going back to the east and served by that trib, but the majority of that watershed is served by what has already been reconstructed. So we had discussions before about how we assess this reconstruction, because with the Otis Thompson, we've kind of done it both ways. We've reconstructed a portion of it and assessed the entire watershed. We also did it, the second and third reconstruction was split up and sub-watersheds created for both of those reconstructions for the assessment. But we had this discussion before, and I think the idea and the board's feeling at that point was we're gonna assess the entire watershed for this trip 3, because obviously to assess that cost of 48 acres is gonna be pretty impactful for the 48 acres. And again, this is the final part of the Otis Thompson that needs to be reconstructed, and then we can consider it good for at least another 100 or 200 years, hopefully.
Yeah,
So,
but see, when we did the first stage, the boys way up on the top side, they've been waiting almost 6 to 7 years to get that part done, because they went ahead and paid the bottom part, didn't they?
yeah, so we did the first phase of reconstruction from 231 to the outlet in 2017. And then basically we left the existing bore under the road. We had engineers look at that with a camera and figure out whether that was viable, and it was. So we didn't rebore under 231 with the first phase of reconstruction. We essentially went from the outlet to the highway, and then jumped on the other side of the highway and made it upstream just to where the end of this highlighted line is. So these two lines here was the first phase of reconstruction. And then the second phase was reconstructing the rest of the main, as well as trib 1. And And then over to the east side of 231, we also reconstructed what's called Tributary 1-1. But again, we created sub-watersheds for Trib 1-1. They paid for that, and then a sub-watershed for the main and Trib 1 that paid for that. And now all that's left is this Trib 3. So I bring this report to you today because I would like to have the board schedule a reconstruction hearing for the Otis Thompson Trib 3 drain. Based on the schedule, that's, if we want to have that hearing in September, we are actually going to have to move our regularly scheduled meeting from the 10th to the 17th. That would move it back 1 week, the following Wednesday. So I would recommend the board reschedule their September meeting to Wednesday, September 17th. And then I would recommend setting a reconstruction hearing for the Otis Thompson Trib 3 at that September 17th meeting.
You trying to do that this year?
Yes. If we get it, that's why I don't want to lose any more time. If we can get that approved in September, get the bid let by the 1st of October, I would have no problem bumping the completion date on this to December 1st. The bore is the biggest deal in this project, and weather doesn't affect a bore the way it does tiling in a field. And also, it's just 8-inch tile. It's not great big tile, so if it's a little bit wetter, it's not as big a concern. So I would have no problem bumping the completion date for this to December 1st, and that gives everybody time to get the bore and everything done before the weather gets really bad.
Okay, with that being said, if we get our ducks in order, are we guaranteed by the railroad and the highway to get the bore done this year?
We have agreement from them. We don't have a written agreement in place yet, but we do have verbal agreement that everything that needed to be hashed out between us and the railroad has been hashed out. The only remaining factor was this question about the carrier pipe, and if we're gonna concede to that, then there's nothing else holding us up at that point.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay.
Do you have that by if we move to the 17th, will you have it by the 17th?
Have what?
The agreement for it.
Not necessarily, but we don't need the agreement before the reconstruction hearing.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we need a motion to move it 17th? Or is
Yeah,
that
you
just
would need a
keep it
motion
here?
to change the date of the September meeting, and then you'll need a motion to set the reconstruction hearing at that.
Second on having a meeting on the 17th. And then second on,
And
and second on the hearing on the reconstruction of the Otis Thompson.
And just to
phase.
clarify on your motion that you are rescheduling the September meeting from September 10th to September
17th.
17th. You're not having an additional meeting on September
Nope,
17th.
nope, just one meeting, just one meeting. And that'd be your hearing, the whole 9 yards.
Correct.
Anything else? New business? You got anything else?
I do not.
Move on to new business. Mr. Bain, it's your time. You wanna come forward or?
Is that microphone on?
Hey, Dave, I don't think we voted. We made,
Oh, excuse me. First, we got to vote. All in favor of the motion? All in favor of the two motions to change the meeting and to have the hearing on the Otis Thompson on September the 17th? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
I'm sorry, sir. I did second executive officer.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'd like to know what the measurement, right-of-way measurements are on the open ditch.
On a
For
regulated drain,
start, for on the Joseph Conway.
so the regulated drain open ditch, it is 75 feet from the top of the ditch bank on each side, 75 feet out.
So you got 150-foot right-of-way, basically.
Total, yes.
Okay. We had a worker out there that camped on our property. I don't know how that was approved, or if
Camped,
it was approved, or,
camped on your property?
yeah, I have a camper sitting on my property.
Okay.
Not cool.
Yeah, that wasn't part of the project.
The machinery, Mr. Anderson, is it Anderson?
Mm-hmm.
The one machine has sat on our property for over a year. It's set right here, just north of 750. It's right next to my bean field. I'm sure it's off the 75-foot right-of-way, and that's oil. No grass is growing there, no beans are growing there. It's an oil spill. And he obviously knows that he has an oil problem because he carries a 55-gallon drum of hydraulic oil on his truck. These machines they're there now. He finished the job in June. I want them gone. They're sitting on our property now.
Well, I will push back on you saying that they were finished in June because they
Well,
didn't
it looks like
finish in
they
June. They might have finished on
haven't
you in
moved.
June.
They have not moved since June.
They just finished. I haven't even received a bill for it yet, so that tells you
Well,
how recently
those
they
have been
finished.
sitting back there since June.
Well,
They
we
haven't moved.
leave the machines there for a little bit afterwards because as you noticed when they were doing the mowing, a lot of that goes into the ditch. They got a lot of it out, but
Yeah.
after we get a couple rains, usually they will plug up a culvert. So it's common for us to leave a machine so that after a couple rain events, if we have to
Yeah.
go and clean out those culverts, they can do
Yeah,
that.
and they did. They took a lot of the brush out
Right.
and put it right over next to the bean field and then ran that machine over and crushed it. So now, when we drive the semi back to load beans out, we're gonna be driving through crushed brush, basically.
Yeah, we're not done out there by any stretch of the
Well,
imagination.
He needs to get on it.
Well,
I
his
don't want
part
to
is
farm,
done.
I don't want to farm around his stuff. I don't want to mow around his stuff. The one sitting there for a year, Tom, that's uncalled for.
Well, you have to understand,
That's so unprofessional, it's not even funny.
we moved in there last fall because the plan was to get that stuff done over the winter time, and this winter just didn't allow us to get much work done. So that's why it sat there for so long before
Well.
actually starting, but I understand what you're
I
saying.
want it gone.
Yeah.
So, do we have a timeline when it can be gone?
If he's completely done with the project, then it'll be moved.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does he have to do to complete the project yet?
From my understanding, he is done now. So I will contact him and make sure he gets the machinery
His
moved out, as
camper's
long as
done.
he's sure that there's not anything else that needs to be done before he leaves. But,
Well, I mean, he's also creating an EPA disaster with the oil that he's
well,
spilling all
that'll
over
be
our
addressed as well.
property.
That'll be addressed as well. It's the first time hearing about it, so that will be addressed as well.
I can leave you these pictures if you'd like.
Oh, that's all right.
I think that's about it. Oh, how about on the Joseph Conway? How do we determine the percentage of benefit? Is that based just on acres?
Yes.
So how are people north of that 36-inch tile benefiting?
North of the 36-inch tile.
The one that's dumping into the open ditch, how is anybody north of that point benefiting from what you're doing down by Elmdale?
Because that serves as the outlet for all the new tile that we're putting in now. The first phase of reconstruction was the outlet end, so that serves as the outlet for all of what we're doing now.
There's not a single county tile that runs through our property
Correct.
to the Conway ditch, but we're paying $100,000.
Where's your, let me see where you're at.
There's one on Inskip, just
Oh,
south
you're on
of-
the open ditch.
Yes, all he
Right,
owns is the open
right,
ditch. That's
right,
what I'm saying, there's not a
right.
single county tile that dumps into that open ditch, off of our property. So how,
But the open ditch is regulated.
it's regulated, I know, and we run private
Right.
tiles and dump in there. We
That's
pay
the way
for
the
those.
watershed works, is that your tile may be private, but if it runs to a regulated drain, then you're gonna be in the watershed for that
Yes.
regulated drain.
I just feel like there should be a different way of basing the price. The people that are gonna benefit the most from what you're doing right now are south of the regulated drain, of the open ditch.
Well, the open ditch is part of the Joseph Conway as well. We've run into this before. You've got a tile portion that's part of the regulated drain, and open ditch is part of the regulated drain. It's easy for the open ditch people to say that tile doesn't affect us. But we are addressing the health of that drain from a watershed standpoint,
Oh,
not
I
a one
understand.
landowner
I understand,
standpoint.
but there should be a way of prorating the benefit, the actual benefit. And you're not ever gonna convince anybody all along 55 there by my brother's house and all those houses that they're benefiting from that open ditch.
Well, I would disagree, but I
Well-
wouldn't argue it with them.
They'll argue with you.
I'm sure they will.
Okay.
Okay, now, a question that I'll ask. You said that, I was up there one day, you got that one big ditch that comes down on your place there around your tool shed, that you have a lot of blowout holes in, right? Now, can they petition, could they petition to make that ditch a county ditch or part of the county? It's an
It's an
individual
18,
ditch right
it's an
for the time.
18 inch.
They can, any landowner can request the board take jurisdiction of a private tile, but the board has the responsibility to make sure that that drain is installed to some standard and works to some, unless the idea is to assume jurisdiction, then turn around and reconstruct it, in which case we've done that before. That's a little bit of a muddy process, and I've kind of evolved to think that it makes no sense to take jurisdiction of an old junk drain and then reconstruct it. Just reconstruct a new drain in one step, rather than taking jurisdiction of something that you know you have to replace.
If not, the whole purpose of the legal drain is provide access for everyone.
Correct.
I mean, when the field used to be, 160-acre field used to be split between 4 people when the
Right.
roads were redone.
Right.
And so you're really not going to save any money as an individual. You'll spread it out over a few more. But if you're the only one, if you're gonna put in sub-tributary watershed, and you are 90% of the person in that watershed, you're still gonna pay for it,
Right.
one way or the other.
That's the other thing to take into account when it comes to taking or assuming jurisdiction of private drains, is understanding the difference between what we call a private drain and what we call a mutual drain. So a private drain is a drain that's not regulated, but it also generally means that it only serves one landowner or one farmer. So those drains you really don't want to take jurisdiction of, because it defeats the purpose of what regulated drains are, which is a drain that is regulated because it serves more than one landowner. So one landowner can do all he wants to take care of it. If the other guy doesn't, they're in the same boat. So mutual drains are drains that the board should, if requested, should give serious consideration to assuming jurisdiction of. But if a landowner comes to you and says, hey, I've got this tile that I just don't want to be the only one paying to fix it, but it only serves my farm, that's not something that I think the board would want to take jurisdiction of.
Now, is that tile he's talking about dump into the open ditch?
Yeah.
So therefore, you are benefiting from the open ditch.
It runs clear to 55, but I don't want to petition. I don't want to cost the people any more money. Lance and I can fix it ourselves, probably cheaper than what it would cost us in taxes.
Okay, all right. Well, I was just, didn't know.
Jeff, I might explain. I mean, the concept of benefit is something we hear a lot about, and you're right. We're not going to convince somebody who, we're going to convince your brother that, you know, he somehow benefits from work being done so far away from him. But what the courts have said for over 100 years is, if you and your neighbors could figure this out, work out some deal that's fair, you're free to do that. But it didn't work. And so the state law says that's why drainage boards exist. And they said, look, the courts have said over and over, if you have land in a watershed, you benefit. Whether you touch a tile, whether it's a tile or an open ditch, even if you're just like me, I have, you know, an acre and a half, I'm in a legal drain. I have no idea how that benefits me at all either. But the law says that every owner of land in a watershed benefits, because the water, wherever it is, eventually gets away and gets to the Mississippi River somehow. And then the second question as to how the assessment is allocated is also a good question. In our 92 counties in the state of Indiana, I would say 99% of the time, drainage boards use a per acre allocation. Now that has been, you know, which basically says the benefit's equal to everybody.
Yeah.
And again, rational people could disagree about that. I agree with you. But again, that has been challenged hundreds of times, and the courts have consistently said, we get it, but this is the only way we can solve these problems. And what we're trying to do is solve that problem so we can increase agricultural production and prevent floods. Now, I say this not to disagree with you. I'm just saying that this position, or the way that the Drainage Board in Montgomery County operates in terms of benefit and allocation of that reconstruction cost, is consistent with not only the court opinions, but also how every other county does it It's not unusual. The arguments or the issues you raise are the ones we hear all the time, and I just want you to hear at least somebody say why we do it. And you don't have to agree, but I
Now,
want you to.
that wasn't my main concern. These machines sitting on our property
Yeah.
are my main concern.
Valid concerns.
I want them
Yeah.
Thank you,
gone.
thank you.
And can we put a timeline on when I can
Well, I guess,
take possession of them, or
I won't
what?
say I'll give a timeline, but I guess Tom will be in contact with Mr. Anderson, you know, and see what
Well,
material.
it looks to me like he's been all the way to 25.
What's that?
He's been all the way to 25 on.
Right, that's what we did, mowed that east-north side from,
Oh, another thing. How do I need to put my hip boots on and walk that creek, because I'm afraid when he was going down there with that grinder, how many outlets did he tear up on private?
generally, they
Right.
know when they hit an outlet.
Do they?
Yeah,
He
generally.
didn't know when he
I
hit
say
my
that
trail.
generally.
He didn't know when he hit my trail camera. It's gone.
Well, trail camera isn't quite the same as hitting an outlet pipe, but, like I said, we're not done out there. So now that he's done with the mowing, the idea was get the mowing done so we can actually get to the ditch to do whatever dipping or erosion control methods we need to do. So we'll be in there this fall doing some more work, and we'll be able to see if any outlets got destroyed or whatever.
I'd like to be gone before harvest.
Oh, his machines will be gone. He won't be the one doing the next phase of work. It'll be a different contractor coming in to do the next phase.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ma'am, you got anything? As we move along, I want to just mention that Tom sent a thing out to us the other day about the drainage school, which is on the 28th of August, I believe, and if we need, did you get anybody to want to go?
Yep.
So,
Nobody responded, so I assume nobody wanted to go. It's actually, you can do it virtually now. You
Yeah.
can actually watch it online rather than going to the actual, because they usually sell, I mean, it's usually packed in there, and a lot of times they actually have to close registration because they've exceeded
I looked
the
at
seating area, but
I looked at the schedule the other day, and the first half until noon it would be interesting to go to and listen to some, but I know I've been over different times, and the second half it gets on talking about wetlands, and it gets kind of drawn out, but.
a lot of the conferences that used to be geared more towards what we do are getting more and more away from what we do. I went to the Stormwater Conference, last month, and there was really the county surveyors have their annual meeting there now rather than road school, because we stopped going to road school completely because there's literally nothing of use to us as far as what we do at road school anymore. They kind of shifted all that to the Stormwater Conference. But really, the main benefit of the Stormwater Conference was just meeting with the surveyors in that surveyor meeting for one day, and then went to the Stormwater Conference the next day, and there just wasn't a whole lot that's real beneficial to us. The state regulations, federal regulation stuff seems to be kind of taking over most of the discussions, which is beneficial, but it doesn't really affect, because we have the state code, the drainage boards. That really lays out what we do, so all the other stuff kind of really doesn't touch what we do. It's kind of secondary. But I got the email, so I figured I'd at least give everybody the opportunity if they wanted to go, or if you want to watch it virtually, whatever. Mainly just so that we could get it claimed out and billed and everything, but if nobody's interested in going, I don't want to force anybody to go. I'm not going, so.
All right. Anything else, anybody? Okay, we'll meet again now on September the 17th. Entertain a motion. Do you have anything, Mr. Taylor?
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
See you 17th.
Thank you.